think we're good. And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to make just also a kind reminder to those of you with cellular phones, please make sure you have those silenced or turned off during the service time so we don't disturb Cantor during service time. It would be greatly appreciated. Following services, the burial will take place at Woodlawn Cemetery. We will be forming a procession to go to the cemetery. For any of you that are going with us, if you don't have a funeral flag on your car, we will come around before we leave for the cemetery just to make sure that everybody is flagged. And of course, we'll ask you to put your lights and your four-way flashers on, but we will do a reminder about that too before we leave. And then I know a number of gentlemen have asked to be casket bearers or pallbearers this morning. I will ask the pallbearers to step forward at the end of the service to assist us with the casket. And I thank you all for your kind attention this morning.
I'd like to begin by thanking everybody for being here today. My name is Jen Rower. I'm the cantor here at the temple, where the Schwartz family are members. And I want to thank everybody who came today, both in person and who's joining us on the live stream to pay tribute to Kyle. I'll begin with a song of memory. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We remember. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק אשר הם עצמם עבדו בעיניו. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם עוד בתוכנו. אורות אלה המבהיקים בחשכת הליל, הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we love. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember. We remember. We remember. A poem by Rabbi Rami M. Shapiro. We are loved by an unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us even when we are hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us even when we are too embittered to hear. We are loved by an unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved by an unending love, embraced, touched, soothed, and counseled. Ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the eyes, the smiles. We are loved by an unending love. In times of grief and loss, our ancestors looked to the book of Psalms for comfort. And I would invite you, if you have a prayer pamphlet, to open as we begin now with words from Psalm 121. Esainai el harim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esainai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai, Oseh shamayim va'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai, Oseh shamayim va'aretz. Esainai el hecharim me'ayin yavo. Ezri Esainai el hecharim me'ayin yavo. We read responsively in the English. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help will come from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to slip. Your guardian will not slumber. Behold, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Eternal is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all evil. He will protect your being. The Lord will guard you coming and going from this time forth and forever. As in the world around us, so too in human life, darkness is followed by light and sorrow by comfort. Life and death are twins. Grief and hope walk hand in hand. Although we cannot know what lies beyond the body's death, let us put our trust in the undying Spirit who calls us into life and who abides to all eternity. O Lord God of the spirits of all flesh, you are close to the hearts of the sorrowing to strengthen and console them with the warmth of your love and with the assurance that the human spirit is enduring and indestructible. Even as we pray for perfect peace for those whose lives have ended, so do we ask you to give comfort and courage to the living. May the knowledge of your nearness be our strength, O God, for you are with us at all times, in joy and sorrow, in light and darkness, in life and death. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot deshe yarbitzeini, al mei menuchot yenahaleini, nafshi yeshoveh Lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni ta'aruch lefanai shulchan neged Kosi Rivaya Achtov Chesed Yerdafuni Kol Yemei Chayai Vishavti Beveit Adonai Le'orech Let us join together in the English of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for the sake of his name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. With rod and staff you comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Our rabbis taught that there are three crowns: the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of royalty. But they emphasized that the crown of a good name excels them all. The book of Ecclesiastes says, Tov Shem Mishemen Tov. A good name is to be treasured above precious oil. Wealth, health, even life passes away, but a good name lives forever. It is this view that the Talmud teaches. Monuments need not be erected for the righteous. Their deeds are their memorials. They will be remembered and revered for the kindness they have shown and for the love they have given. They are shining examples of what it means to be a mensch. None of us should be here today. We should be at work. The kids should be at school. We should be living in that world we often think we inhabit, where things make sense, where there is another tomorrow, and where we are accustomed to medical miracles and cures being part of our everyday 21st century existence. But we don't live in that world today. Today, we live in a world that does not make sense, where we feel lost, confused, disappointed, and betrayed. We live in a world where Kyle has been taken from us, from his beloved wife, Abby, and his sons, Logan and Jacob, from his parents, Glenda and Larry, his brothers and sisters-in-law, Aaron and Sarah and Seth and Megan, from his relatives and co-workers and many, many friends in the prime of his life and in the most unexpected and tragic of circumstances. The gaping hole cannot be filled, and we feel it acutely as we gather here to say goodbye. But even though we were robbed of the time we thought we had left, the crown of Kyle's good name can never be taken away. In the words of the Talmud, a good name lives forever. Kyle's life was a shining example of what it means to be a mensch. Today, we begin the task of paying tribute to this man who gave so much of himself to others. This room is filled to overflowing with people whose lives he touched. Friends and co-workers who were the recipients of his kindness, his positive outlook, his incredible work ethic, and his playful nature. Family who basked in his endless love and constant devotion as a son, brother, uncle, husband, and father. With us today are friends and family who will be joining me here on the bima to add their personal words of tribute to Kyle. I'd like to invite forward at this time Susan Foster, Captain Alan Powers, Josh Marcus, and Nick Benya.
Hello, good morning. My name is Susan Foster, and I'm the Vice President of Casino Operations at Hollywood Casino. I have been asked to speak a few words about Kyle, our friend and our colleague. So I'd like to share my first impression of Kyle. I had just transferred from one of our other properties in East Chicago to Toledo. It was just nearly 2 years ago. And it was in the midst of all of the COVID restrictions. So I'm wandering around at work and everyone has their face masks on and I'm trying to get to know people and so on and so forth. And I'm back at the house and then this gentleman comes up to me and he's very spiffily dressed and he goes, "You must be Susan." I went, "I am Susan." So he introduced himself. He said, "My name is Kyle. I'm one of your assistant pit managers here, and I would like to welcome you." So I was really trying to concentrate on what Kyle was talking about, but I was really distracted because of this tie that he had on. So I'm trying to pay attention to him, and in the end I said, "Kyle," I said, "what is on your tie?" So he goes, "These are my sons." So he, quote unquote, introduced me to Logan and Jacob. And even with that mask on, I could see the pride in his face. I could feel the pride in the way he spoke about being a husband to Abby and the father to Logan and Jacob. And what a proud man he was of this family. And then moving on to earlier this year, we opened a gaming terrace, and I know that everyone is not a casino person here, but we opened a gaming terrace that was an outdoor gaming terrace, and to staff that gaming terrace is a little challenging. In the winter it can be cold, in the summer it can be warm. But Kyle stepped up. He goes, "I want to be in there. I want to take ownership." And boy, did he take ownership of that place. I look around at all of my fellow team members, and each and every one of them know how he took on that responsibility and just made it his own. Any holiday, you all know, he would dress up that pit. St. Patrick's Day, July the 4th, any holiday. He made it his own to the point that he had pencil erasers. So if you know anything about gaming, we have to do lots of writing. But those pencil erasers were unicorns. Because as he said, if he'd bought dragons and dinosaurs, Logan and Jacob would have taken charge of those. So he took the unicorns. And to my team members that are here today, each and every one of you, we loved him. We truly did. He was their mentor. He was their coach. He was their teacher. But most of all, he was kind. He made sure he looked after them because customers can be a little challenging. I'm just sharing that with you now. But he was always there for them. And to end this, again, our sincere condolences to the family. But from us, his Hollywood family, I have to finish with his catchphrase, and you all know what that is. And I can hear the dealers saying it. "Have a Hollywood night." Rest in peace.
Wow, that's on loud. If it was Kyle up here, he'd have a scroll which would fall down, right? All down onto the steps. I don't have that much. Obviously, it was hard to think. So, in the SCA, one of the names I'm known by is Captain Craith. When Abby asked me to tell a few stories, I tried to think of complete tales involving Kyle, but all I was really coming up with was bits and pieces and short sequences. I think all our memories work like that. So, Kyle was known as Yosef in the SCA, Yosef Baruch ben Lazar. And he owned that, just like about everything else that he did when he put himself into it. I know at one point some were calling him Diet Captain. I realize now that those folks were just calling me fat. It was probably a disservice to both of us. In any case, some were calling him Diet Captain, which is not to be confused with Captain Light. That was someone else. He's sitting back over there. Still, most just knew him as Joseph. I don't recall exactly when I met Kyle or Joseph. It was probably at an SCA meeting in either Bowling Green, maybe here in Toledo. But he quickly became a good friend and companion. Actually, there are probably some here who have strong memories of their early times in the SCA with Joseph. I fear poor Zatara, she was supposed to be here, may be permanently scarred. Her first event was known World Academy of the Rapier, K-War, down in Cincinnati. A bunch of us had gotten some adjoining rooms in the hotel. We arrived together, checked in, and went up to the rooms en masse. It was Friday evening. We were looking forward to the socializing. And there were already a lot of people there that we knew, and we wanted to get back downstairs and say hello and see them and imbibe. And so we got into the room, dropped our bags, and Joseph and I immediately started taking our clothes off, so we could change into SCA garb and for socializing. Well, Zatar was not expecting that. Well, so when she finally said, what are you guys doing? Well, we, without stopping, explained. She felt better after that. So she was reassured. As we all, if anyone knew Kyle and Joseph, we know that he loved shtick. And he actually became known for testing the rules and formats of any tournament that he might be fighting in. This prompted Mal, he's here somewhere, to create a Whose Fight Is This Anyway tournament. Paraphrased, Joseph can't cheat in this. So the basic premise is that it was a timed challenge tournament. In the course of an hour or so, you could challenge anyone as many times as you wanted to. You roll a die to see which stack of cards you drew from for special conditions for the bout. It was based on Whose Line Is It Anyways, improv show. The cards were divided into categories like sound effects, film styles, green screen. They had stuff on them like Your Fight Is Too Quiet, provide sound effects. Or You Are Fighting with a Lightsaber, make appropriate sounds. Or serenade your opponent as you fight. Or even, there's a Japanese movie monster behind you, your opponent, fight accordingly. Points were given for each kill, so there would be a winner based on real points who would get a real prize. For meeting the criteria of the cards, however, imaginary points were given out for an imaginary prize. It was all designed so that Joseph could rule lawyer all he wanted to, but in the end, he would either have to rack up the kills, most wins, sorry, or just hit the right amount of comedic notes with his improv skills in order to win. Unfortunately, someone else won for superior improvisation, if you can believe that. So, and I lost my place. So another friend told me of a time when Joseph first fought and stabbed her in the SCA. He thought she was crying, so he dropped his rapier and rushed over to her. She was actually just giggling. So he did have a tendency to make sure his friends were all right. Over the course of time, Joseph's rapier skill grew, Another friend, Burden, told me of a particular rapier fight he and Yosef had, which inadvertently taught him the value of patience. Burden jumped around and threw all sorts of attacks at Yosef. Yosef just stood and countered everything that was thrown his way. Then Yosef took Burden apart, piece by piece. Afterward, Burden complimented Yosef on his strategy. Yosef laughed and told him that his lack of movement was mostly due to laziness. I wish I had that kind of patience. Wait, I do. It just doesn't come through there. Yosef's prowess had grown such that when he visited a friend down in Florida, the SCA Kingdom of Trimaris, he very nearly won the Queen's Rapier Tournament. Yeah, good story. So Penzik was much enjoyed by Yosef as well, or by Kyle. Somewhere out there on the internet are pictures of Yosef, myself, and Meinhard? No? As the Cabana Boys for the Queen's tea. Another time, Yosef had been doing some guard duty at Mid-Royal, which is the local kingdom encampment, and was supposed to bring something back for me after he was done. But he disappeared. He didn't return when he was expected to. So hours passed. I was getting a bit irritated about it when he finally got back to camp, wasted drunk. So it seems that the king and queen and entourage had gone out visiting other royal encampments. And the king had fighting to do the next day, so he didn't really want to overindulge. So he appointed Yosef as his drinking champion for the night. Whatever the king would have drunk, Yosef drank instead. That king is known to be very hardy. Our friend Yosef learned a lesson, maybe, I don't know, but he had a lot of fun. Finally, part of Yosef's claim to inter-kingdom fame, other than nearly being the Queen of Trimaris' rapier champion, was gained on the Penzik battlefield. One of our members had donated a couple of heavy-duty aluminum cookie sheets. We affixed them with handles and turned them into bucklers, what rapier fighters in the SCA use for shields. We even put Fen Militia stickers on them. So Yosef was using one of them in the rapier warpoint battles at Penzik during the battle as he was returning to the battle line to fight. Someone on the other side was heard to exclaim, "Look out for the cookie sheet! Look out for the cookie sheet!" Yeah, okay, most of us who understand what's going on get a kick out of that. Sorry for the rest of you. Kyle was a good friend, and many are going to miss him on the rapier field, as well as off of it. Thank you.
I'm Joshua Marcus, and Kyle and I became friends. Sorry. And friends in summer of 1982, when our mothers met for the first time at the Lincolnshire pool. When I tell people that Kyle was a childhood friend, I'm not sure if they realize Kyle and I have been together and friends for 40 years. When my family moved to St. James Woods years later, I was lucky that the Schwartzes also moved. And Kyle helped create the most vivid memories of my childhood. Many days we'd bike and walk to each other's homes and meet up at the park to play. There's a forest that we'd go, and that a creek that we'd play and cause a lot of havoc, and make our way back to Schwartz's house to hang out in the awesome fort that his dad built. Recently, our families even went to that same park and had the opportunity to show the kids and our wives that it's where we play as kids. As we entered our teen years, we often would meet up and strategize about the next D&D, a risk campaign that his older brother Aaron created. And we'd also enjoy sword fights in our driveways with plastic bats. And so who knew we would have grown up and used real swords? We were uniquely geeky and proud of it. In middle school, we both joined the band and the wrestling team together, and both of us grew amazing beards, impressing all the other 7th graders. In high school, we moved on from meeting in driveways and parks to bonding in the marching band equipment bus, singing Monty Python songs and quoting our favorite Mel Brooks films. I also attended an awesome Alice Cooper and Ted Nugent concert and went whitewater rafting in West Virginia. We also both shared the stage in theater. He worked hard backstage managing all the props and sets while I was on stage, and just endless adventures together. But while we didn't see each other as much during our college years, we did find ways to go to meet each other at the campuses. That we traveled to Israel together and attended comic book conventions and other conventions. And I remember one that he warned me about the Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster, and I should have listened. We were loud, strange, and proud, he and I. Kyle wasn't just part of who I am today. He encouraged me to enjoy the person that I am and go through life unafraid of what others might think of me. When I began dating my wife, Leah to Kyle, I knew the first friend I wanted to introduce her to needed to be Kyle. And on that third date, she met Kyle in full jester's costume. And after that, when it came to choosing the wedding party, we knew that Kyle was going to be the first one that were going to join us under the hoop. I was lucky to have Kyle stand with me that day. I wouldn't trade anything in the world. I would trade anything in the world to have more adventures with Kyle. So long, it makes for all the fish.
My name is Nick Benya, and I met Kyle Schwartz when I was 12 years old. We had just moved from the 5 Points, Warner's Corners area to Sylvania, and at McCord Junior High, excuse me. And I believe Kyle, he started to like me because of the last name Benya. He thought that I might be Jewish. And it turns out that I wasn't, and he did not hold that against me. And in that vein, I'd like to speak on my friend's deep and abiding faith. Kyle Schwartz loved being Jewish. It was a source of strength, a source of pride, and a source of peace. I saw his deep, unwavering faith get him through difficult challenges, moderate inconveniences, and it carried him through some of the happiest and most joyful moments of his life. He had a Jewish joke for every occasion. I remember in high school, a good friend of ours, Dan Krempek, he was a pizza delivery person. And one Monday, he came in and he was super happy because he had made a ton of money on tips because this place had ordered 25 pepperoni pizzas. And I asked, Kyle, I didn't think Jewish people were allowed to eat pork. And he immediately launched into a joke. I'm going to do it now. A rabbi and a priest were on a long train ride, and they ended up talking through the night about what their religions required of them. And at one point, the priest said to the rabbi, I have to ask, have you ever broken your holy vows and tried pork? At which point the rabbi looked around and he leaned in conspiratorially and he said, "Well, Father, some years ago, yes, I did break my vow. I'd had some bacon. But now I have to ask you, Father, have you ever broken your holy vows and been with a woman?" The priest, he looked around and he leaned in conspiratorially as well and said, "Well, Rabbi, some years ago, yes, I did break my vows and I engaged in coitus with a woman." At which point the rabbi, big smile, and said, "It's a lot better than bacon, isn't it?" He had one for everything, every joke, everything. But even more than having a Borscht Belt joke for every occasion, I witnessed how his faith permeated everything he did. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, Kyle and Abby, they did me the great honor and invited me to his family's Seder. And I can honestly say that it was one of the most meaningful nights I've ever had in my entire life. And I will never forget the lovely Seder plate that Abby set up. And the boys were running around and they were trying to show me their dreidel and their coins, and they were trying to tell me about the Afikomen. I had no idea what this was. I thought Elijah had hid the Afikomen and they had to find it before he came back. I didn't understand. The ceremony was remarkable, and Kyle was clearly relishing the task of leading the proceedings and reading from the Haggadah. He was in his element. He was loving it. The most striking moments were the frequent periods where the book was not needed. His tenor and his voice and his cadence all changed, and he was clearly remembering and imitating his father and his grandfather, and very likely his fathers and fathers and fathers, and it was glorious. The time he spent in this temple, it was written in his bones. When it came time to name the 10 plagues and take the 10 drops from the cup, I will never forget what he did. He looked at Logan and Jacob and he said, "Boys, we give up a little of what's in our cup because the Egyptians suffered. Even if someone brings a punishment on themselves, even if they deserve it, you can't be happy if someone else is suffering, even if they hurt you. Our joy is always lessened by the suffering of others." And it turns out there are many different interpretations about everything in the Seder, but it does not surprise me in the least that Kyle would choose this meaning. Kyle was never cruel. He was never mean. He was never petty. He was never vindictive. He had a clear sense of how people would respond to difficult situations, and he could expertly guide them to make good decisions, as he did many times for me. His door was always open. I was friends with him in high school, and then I went to Japan for 12 years. And when I came back, he was still my friend. And people who had known him for years, you were always welcome at his house. He was generous with his time, his talents, and his treasures. And I am completely unsurprised that he was a regular blood donor, even though we never talked about it. For him, service, kindness, and respect, they were as natural to him as breathing. Which is why I think the best way we can remember Kyle Schwartz is to take our sadness and take his memory and take the example of his life and try to use it for fuel to reduce the suffering of others and to tell as many terrible jokes as possible. Thank you for letting me speak. May his memory be a blessing.
Also, just want to take a moment to acknowledge and thank Megan Fitzpatrick, who people have been wondering where's that gorgeous music coming from. She's sitting down in the pit, and we'll get to hear from her in a little bit as well. I'd like to invite forward to represent Kyle's family, his cousin Alexis, and brother Aaron.
Good morning. My name's Alexis, and I'm Kyle's cousin. We grew up on different parts of this country, and so it was only once a year during the holiday time that we got to get together. The Schwartz clan would come down from Ohio, and we would come out from California and go wherever our grandparents were, whether it was Kansas or Arkansas at the time. And some of my earliest memories are of those times that we spent together. We were wacky kids, and when we got together, we got into all sorts of trouble. But usually my family would get there first, and so we had a good, week to get ourselves into a lather of excitement about the cousins coming. And that would culminate into the last night before they come. I don't think my sister and I slept a wink because we were so excited about the cousins coming. And when they would arrive that day, we'd head straight down to the basement and lock ourselves in there, and we played all sorts of games. I mean, it's just those memories of your childhood that you have where you had those times with your cousins, your first friends, really. There's pictures of us that I don't remember taking, but I have them as memories because I've seen them so many times, and I cherish those ones. Every time we got together, Glenda was always insistent that we took the cousins' picture. And at some point during our gathering, usually towards the end, you'd hear her saying it loud. And then as we got older, there was more eye rolling and groaning, but we always did it. We always took the cousins' picture, and I'm so grateful because what a beautiful memento of that times in our lives. The times when we're babies and toddlers barely fitting on the couch or, so tiny on this giant couch, to the times where we're giant teenagers, we don't fit, we're all looking ornery, and they're just such treasures looking back. Awkward, so many awkward times. And looking back at those times, I think it's probably no surprise to anybody in this room that Kyle was a very sunny, warm child. I remember that. We're very close in age, and so he had an infectious laugh. He could make you laugh, and I remember giggling till I can, He had that sense of humor that was infectious. Just a big heart. It exuded in everything that he did, and he loved his family very much, and that was very apparent in everything he did. As we got older and became adults, we spread out even more in the country, and it was harder to get together. But in the last, I'd say 10 years, we were able to make some special pilgrimages back to Arkansas to visit our grandparents. And this was really special for me because I got to bring my children, and I got to introduce them to this side of my family that they had not met before, and have them spend time with these people that I grew up with. And it was especially lovely looking back to see Aaron and Kyle and Seth and see what wonderful human beings and adults they've grown up to be. And I think that for me, it was also touching to see what wonderful husbands and fathers they've also become. And these times together, most recently, were such a gift for so many reasons. And in reflection, I can see that all of these qualities that we noticed and saw in Kyle as a child that made him really remarkable absolutely shone through as an adult. And we can hear it in all of the lovely things people said here today. He had such a genuine warmth and kindness in him. His generosity of spirit was remarkable. He had an ability to make you laugh, and really a larger-than-life personality. He loved his family and friends fiercely. And so on behalf of my mother, Priscilla, my brother, Keller, my sister, Kieran, and our families, we just consider ourselves so very lucky to have known Kyle, and we will cherish these sweet memories today and in the future. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank Captain and Nick and Josh for their kind words a few minutes ago. It's really a testament that Kyle's had so many great friends throughout his life that are willing to stand up and share these stories. I'm Aaron. I'm the oldest brother. I'm gonna tell a story about Kyle. This is a story, it's one of my favorite stories about Kyle, and many of you have probably never heard it before. It took place about 14 years ago when I took my current job at Ohio University, and I had been living in California, and I had to move back from California to Ohio. And my wife Sarah and I drove across the country with a moving truck, and we had our own car kind of towed behind it. We drove from California to Athens, Ohio, and then we left the moving truck at our new apartment and then hopped in my car and drove up to Toledo to visit with my family. On the day we were preparing to leave Toledo, my car was parked out in front of my parents' house, and it got hit by a teenage driver that was going by. She had a dog in the car, but the car was totaled. So it kind of delayed our ability to leave Toledo quickly. It was urgent for me to return to Athens because I had to empty the moving truck and return it. My wife Sarah had a bad back, and she knew she wasn't going to be able to kind of work through the night like I needed somebody to do to help me unload the truck. So Kyle, at the drop of a hat, volunteered to go with me and drive down. We borrowed a car from my parents, and I promised him I'd take him out in Athens once we finished unloading the truck. We borrowed the car, and we left after dinner that night. And on the way down, we talked about everything. We hadn't really spoken very much in 2 years while I had been in California, and he was filling me in on his life. He told me all about all the different things he was doing in the SCA, the sword fighting, archery, furniture building, and how Seth had been also joining in and coming along to events, and how that they were learning to get along with each other a lot better by fighting respectfully within the rules. We also talked about movies. We talked about Star Trek. We talked about Marvel Comics long before they were cool. We talked about spiritual matters. We compared our Birthright Israel experiences. Surprisingly, he talked a lot about Abby, who he had recently just visited in South Carolina, in Charleston. When we finally arrived in Athens, it was around 11 p.m. And the truck needed to be returned the next day, so we immediately got to work. Together, we unloaded all the furniture and moved it into the new apartment. We worked diligently and fell into a familiar teamwork pattern that we had honed while we were working for my dad. We unloaded chairs, beds, tables, and lots of boxes. I kept promising him that as soon as the truck was empty, I'd take him out for a drink uptown. We finally finished around 1:30 in the morning. I wasn't sure if we'd have a chance to go anywhere, but Kyle was planning to head back the next day, and I didn't want him to miss his chance to go out in Athens. So we headed into town and parked in front of the Union, which had been one of my old haunts when I was a student. It was summer, and there were very few people in town, and the local businesses were keeping strange hours. We walked in the bar downstairs at the Union, and they were already closing, and the bartender motioned for us to go upstairs. We climbed the stairs, and as we climbed, we could hear music playing. And it was familiar. It was the opening notes of Journey's Don't Stop Believing, playing from upstairs. As we entered the room, we saw that all the booths and tables and even the bar were empty. But the music was still pounding loudly. We turned toward the front of the room where there was a stage, and there were about 20 people hugging each other and singing the lyrics loudly. It was obvious that it was the tail end of a long night of karaoke, and these people were enjoying being in each other's company. And Kyle and I were outsiders, just wandering in at the last minute. At that moment, Kyle looked at me, and he shrugged his shoulders, and he turned and just walked up to the stage. And one of the singers helped him climb up and join them, and all I could do at this point was follow. And we sang our hearts out for a few minutes, and Kyle was the life of the party. And after the song, the lights came up, and we never did get the drink we were after. We returned to the apartment, and we slept on a mattress on the floor, and he helped me return the truck, and then he left on his own the next day. I like to think about this story because even though he was my younger brother, he always had so much to teach me about how to live. He knew how to hone in on what he wanted. He knew how to be helpful to others and how to work hard and how to have a good time with whoever was around, even complete strangers. These skills served him well over the years, and that's evidenced by all the people whose lives he's touched. It's shocking that Kyle was taken from us at such a young age, but it's also amazing how it's given us all a chance to see the impact that Kyle has made in so many areas. A few days ago, I talked to my friend Brad, who was in the euphonium squad with Kyle in marching band back in high school. And if you don't know, the euphonium is like this small tuba that you carry. Brad told me about the impact Kyle had on him during their second year when they were suddenly responsible for training a new group of freshmen in the ways of marching and playing the euphonium. While some kids saw band as a goof-off class, Kyle took it seriously, and he stepped up as a leader and a role model. He had a magnetic quality, and when he spoke up, people listened. He always seemed older than he really was. Maybe because of his full beard at age 13. We always used to joke because he shaved for his bar mitzvah, and then later that year, he had grown the full beard back so he could play the title role in Joseph in the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Even after I went to college, people meeting Kyle would assume he was the older one, or that he was my uncle. After I'd get carded trying to buy beer, Kyle would go get it with no problem. And it wasn't because he wanted it, it was just because he wanted to help me out. I'll never forget how he'd always try and use his powers for good. As I've been going through a lot of pictures of Kyle this past week, it's made me smile to see how he somehow seemed perfectly comfortable wearing garb from many historical eras past, whether it was his disco suit or his jester's outfit that he wore in the court of the SCA. While some would be embarrassed by these costumes or find them silly, Kyle was able to step into these roles and just ooze confidence that just made you want to play along. There were so many occasions in different years and in different situations where I've seen him dressed in full pirate regalia. Not just one, but several pirate costumes have surfaced over the years. As a nod to this, I understand some of his friends from the casino are dressing like pirates today in his honor. In more recent years, I got to participate in Kyle and Abby's wedding and all of the celebratory events that surrounded their union, especially the Irish hand-fasting ceremony, where both of their sense of humor and their joy for life was so obvious, as was their love for each other. I got to see him become a father to Logan and Jacob, and an uncle to Malcolm. I saw Kyle bond with Logan over Pokemon and gush over Jacob's artistic instincts. I saw his friendship with Seth strengthen and deepen over the years as they've experienced many of life's milestones together. He was so good at talking to people and taking on a role in the group, whether in marching band, SCA, or his job at the casino, or all the trips to Gucci with my dad and the Brotherhood, and even as a father. As Nick mentioned, he told dirty jokes, but they weren't too dirty. And he would always recall the wisdom of influential teachers like Rabbi Ron when he ran into a problem. He was a good listener and always considered what he could do to help. Kyle was always patient. He was always kind. He was always willing to give. My mom tells a story about when we were very young, and she gave each of us a cookie. I ate mine quickly, while Kyle just looked at his. With my cookie gone, I started crying. When Kyle saw that I didn't have a cookie anymore, he broke his cookie in half and gave part of his to me. That's the Kyle I will remember. The Kyle who would drop everything to drive across the state with his brother. The Kyle who wouldn't hesitate to celebrate and sing with strangers. The Kyle who would give half of what he had to make someone else happy. It's clear that he has touched so many people. In the past few days, so many have reached out to me and the rest of our family. The shock is not just that he was taken from us so young and in such an unexpected manner, but that it was Kyle. He was a true mensch in every positive sense. And Logan and Jacob, they don't deserve this, and Abby doesn't deserve it, and my parents don't, and Seth and I don't, and we weren't ready to say goodbye. We're all in a state of disbelief, and now we have to live in a world without him. But we were lucky for getting to live in a world during the time while he was here. A silver lining of all of this is I got a chance to see how many people have been impacted by Kyle, and that bonds are being strengthened through our shared grief. I feel all the love from our extended family, our Toledo friends, camp friends that grew up with me and Kyle and Seth, watched us grow up, the Jewish community, the SCA, and even the Hollywood casino family. I hope that this experience helps all of us pause and reflect on who we have that's important in our lives and not take them for granted. Thank you.
As I think everyone here today knows, Kyle and Abby had an incredibly special relationship that spanned pretty much their entire lives, and I'd like to invite Abby forward to share her words with us.
A little more full than I expected it to be. I just want to thank all of our friends and family for everything they've said. It echoes so much truth of what Kyle was and all the things I've been thinking about and focusing on. Family and friends, we have been blessed with a beautiful soul. I don't have to tell you who Kyle was because Kyle was loud and funny, in the center of all things that embrace life. He was the life of a party and the person you just wanted to be around. His stories, often repeated, became fish tales, grander and grander. Actually, that was one of our last fights. The bear was charging me down. Kyle, it took 2 fast steps. We might have been fine. The bear almost killed me. Kyle, you are going to be telling the story 20 years from now, and you're going to say, no shit, there I was. A 9-foot grizzly bear on one side and her 2 cubs on the other. Abby, 20 years from now, you are going to tell everyone it was a bee and not a bear. My first memory is blurry. Carpool singing on top of Old Smoky, which is a song we sung loudly to annoy our boys while driving in the Smoky Mountains this month. 8 years later, when I joined the BBYO, the B'nai B'rith Youth Organization, a sorority of girls and a fraternity of boys, and with a short time to mingle after every meeting, I remember becoming friends with Kyle, watching his older brother participating in a wonderfully fun fundraiser called Miss AZA. The boys put on a drag show and we bid for dates. It was the funniest thing I had ever seen, and I just had to be the one to help Kyle dress for the occasion when it was his turn. Then something funny happened. I was invited to join the group to go into Kyle's hot tub at his parents'. Upon meeting his mom, I learned what a Jewish mother really is. Oh, Abigail Sherline? I know you. You are Kyle's future wife. I have known that since we carpooled in preschool. To be honest, I did consider dating Kyle, but he already had a girlfriend, and by the time they broke up, so did I. But we were friends, and I was pretty starstruck by my friend Kyle and his handsome big brother. The biggest change for us was when I was asked to join the American Turners dance group. During my first meeting, I was faced with just a bunch of old ladies and gentlemen and my youthful mother. I was determined to have a young man to be my partner, and I couldn't think of anyone better to con into the deal but my friend Kyle Schwartz. Poor Kyle. Ring, ring. Kyle? Yeah, do you want to go dancing with me tonight? Yeah? Okay. Poor Kyle thought we were going on a date, and that's when my mom and I picked him up. So, yeah, it's German dancing. But other than the fact that they wouldn't actually let him be my partner anyways, because neither of us knew the dances, it was great. We got cool costumes, and we got to be the center of attention at every summer at the German American Festival. We were underage and feeling like VIPs. Kyle would order pitchers of beer free for our group, and we would always try to drink one by ourselves. Then we'd fold after he had a few and I had my 3 sips of the yucky stuff, and we'd give it back to the group. After high school, we were always together on school breaks, and my friend and I even visited him at the University of Cincinnati, and then he visited me at BGSU. He dated a girl not quite grand enough for him, and I dated all the wrong people. But in the end, isn't that the best way? Experiencing our lives, experiencing life, and learning what you do and don't want in a life partner. I'm embarrassed to share I was 30 before I took my guard down, and finally, in a long story that most of you have already heard, I allowed myself to deserve the man who was always there. The man who drove my mom to the hospital when she was sick. The man who rescued my baby brother from a bad roommate situation. And the man who painted my mother's kitchen and garage with me just to spend time together. Hindsight truly is 20/20. And even I am baffled that it took me so long to see what God clearly had in plan for me. And that there would have had to have been those comic book lights and arrows over Kyle's head for me to realize what everyone else always knew, that Kyle was and always had been my soulmate. Our relationship, therefore, was like nothing either of us had ever experienced. Dating my best friend was awkward at first, scary that we were risking something so precious. Kyle had always been there, and I knew he always would be. I couldn't imagine a better father. I so desperately wanted to have his children. I dreamt of green-eyed babies with his love and compassion. I even dreamed of a curly blonde. God made us work hard for it, but in the end, we have the 2 most beautiful green-eyed babies, one with curly blonde hair, while it lasted. those boys became our every breath. We lived life to its fullest, sucking the marrow from 1,000 experiences. I don't know how we got here today. How do you say goodbye to the other half of yourself? Kyle loved me deeply and completely. I never felt like I deserved that, or that I was good enough to be loved that way. I can only thank God that God gave me pieces of him in my boys. Logan has his passion and joy. Jacob, his looks and the way he thinks. I was always able to see the kind of men they would be because of their father. I will have to reach out to many of you to fill that void. Friends to play Pokemon. Engineers to foster Jacob's passions. Card dealers to fulfill the promise of teaching them how to play blackjack and poker. And yes, my dragon masters to teach the boys how to use all of Daddy's dice that they love so much. A life without Kyle was not in the plans. I knew he'd always be there. After all, his grandparents all lived until the late 90s. He was going to be the cutest grumpy old man. I could see it all. Thank you.
How do we begin to say goodbye? How do we say goodbye to Kyle's spirited enthusiasm, his smile full of life, his incredible work ethic, his love of fun, his deep devotion to his children and family? All we can do is to begin today to make him a part of each of us. As we say goodbye to Kyle today, let his life be an inspiration to you as you continue on your path. Let his presence into your heart and allow him to be your guide. When we live our lives inspired by the many ways that Kyle touched us, we allow his light to continue to guide our paths. In this way, he will never be truly gone, but he will be deeply, deeply missed. The poet Chaim Nachman Bialik wrote, "After my death, mourn me thus. There was a man, and see, he is no more. Before his time, his life was ended, and the song of his life was broken. There was another song in him, and now that melody is lost forever." Let us take a moment now in silence as we remember Kyle and the many gifts he gave us during his lifetime. Please rise for the El Male Rachamim, the memorial prayer. El Male Rachamim, Shochein Bamromi, Amtzei Menocha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah, Im Kedoshim U'Tahorim, Kezohar Harakia, Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Yosef Baruch ben Lazar u'Miriam, Shehalach le'olamo. Ba'al harachamim, Yastirehu beseiter kinafav le'olamim. V'yitzror bitzror hachayim et nishmato. Adonai hu nachalato. V'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. O God, full of compassion, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence to our loved one who has entered eternity. Master of mercy, let him find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. The eternal God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. We join together in the words of the Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divarach hirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yit barach v'yish tabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit romam v'yit naseh, v'yit hadar v'yit aleh v'yit halal, shemei dekudsha barichu, le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom araba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. Let us say together, Amen.